story comes from Tacoma in Washington State. The trial for Tacoma police officers charged with unaliving Manny Ellis starts this fall. Here's what you need to know. So, Manny Ellis, they tortured that man. A spit bag was put over his head. It was awful. It was the George Floyd of Washington State. And those officers, they may walk free. And not even all the people who were involved are facing charges. In 2021, for the first time, the Washington State Attorney General's office criminally charged police officers for the unlawful use of deadly force. Tacoma police officers Christopher Burbank and Matthew Collins are charged with second-degree unaliving, and Timothy Rankin is charged with first-degree manslaughter in the unaliving of Emmanuel Manny Ellis in 2020. Now, more than 3 years later after what happened to Manny Ellis, the officers are set to stand trial in September. Here's what you need to know. So, if you don't understand the impact of Manny Ellis, this painting was done in downtown Tacoma, and there's a bunch of paintings all over the place. You know, there's video. I'm not showing it. I just, those types of videos, I promise I wouldn't show that on my channel. I don't want to see, I don't want, it's a really, really tough thing to see, man. I'm just saying, if you haven't seen it, brace yourself. It's hard to watch. What led up to what happened to Manny Ellis? On March 3rd, 2020, Ellis was walking home in Tacoma's South End around 11 p.m. with some powdered donuts and water that he brought from a nearby 7-Eleven when he encountered two Tacoma police officers. The officers said in their initial statements that Ellis was disturbing vehicles near the intersection of 96th Street and Ainsworth Avenue before turning his aggression toward them. They engaged in a violent, minutes-long struggle. The officers hogtied the 33-year-old black man and placed a spit hood over his head. After Ellis told officers, "I can't breathe," several times, Ellis went unconscious, and he passed away at the scene. It's hard to even talk about, man. The officers initially suggested that Ellis passed away from excited delirium. No, you placed a spit bag over a man's head. You didn't check to see if his airways were clear. You hogtied him. You hogtie someone, you place a spit bag over their head. You can, in fact, obstruct their breathing. And the way they had him land, it was obvious what was happening. Who investigated? Ellis' sister, Monet Carter Mixon, conducted her own informal investigation and uncovered witness videos that show parts of the interaction between Ellis and the officers. Those findings, combined with the Pierce County medical examiner's ruling that Ellis passed away from oxygen deprivation from police restraints, brought national attention and further investigation to the case. So it was the Pierce County medical examiner and his sister, his own cold sister, who didn't back down. Own cold sister. Shout out to her, man. She didn't give up the fight. That's amazing to me, you know. Carter Mixon's investigation is chronicled in the narrative podcast The Walk Home, produced by KNKX News and the Seattle Times. There were 3 official investigations into what happened the night of March 3rd. The Pierce County Sheriff's Department was initially the independent agency investigating what happened to Manny Ellis, and that includes Ed Troyer. And Ed Troyer is a bit of a racist, so you can tell how that was going to go. In late June 2020, just before investigators were set to present the case to the prosecuting attorney's office, the department disclosed one of its deputies had helped restrain Ellis. Oh, so the Pierce County Sheriff's Department was actually involved. Notice how I didn't even read that sentence. This is the first time that I've even ran into this article. I just brought up this particular article for this broadcast. Seriously. For this live stream. I literally just brought that up. And how did I already know the Pierce County Sheriff's Department was going to be filled with a bunch of white supremacists? Well, I already know that because Ed Troyer was on criminal trial because he lied on a black newspaper carrier, and he was acquitted based on a technicality. On a technicality. So basically, Ed Troyer is a racist, white supremacist. So it doesn't shock me that a racist white supremacist sheriff would help cover up what happened to Manny Ellis, because one of his own deputies had helped restrain Ellis. So basically, the criminals were investigating themselves. That's wild. The Washington State Patrol then took over the investigation at the request of Governor Jay Inslee. Washington State Patrol then referred its investigation to the Washington Attorney General's office in November of 2020. So basically, this is what happened. Long and short of it. After additional investigation, the Attorney General's office charged Collins and Burbank with second-degree unaliving and first-degree manslaughter. Rankin, who responded as a backup, was charged with first-degree manslaughter. All three officers pleaded not guilty and were bailed out of jail by the owner of a local construction company. The officers contend Ellis attacked them. Second-degree unaliving carries a sentence of about 10 to 18 years for someone with no criminal history. The standard range for first-degree manslaughter is about 6 to 8 years. Both charges are felonies, and a conviction would prohibit employment as a police officer. New Tacoma Police Chief Avery Moore, who joined the department in 2022, said the internal investigations of Collins, Burbank, and Rankin are on hold until after the trial. The city of Tacoma will have paid them more than $1 million combined since they were placed on paid leave in June 2020. Were other officers involved? Officers Mesa Ford and Armando Farinas. Armando Farinas were cleared of wrongdoing by an internal investigation in December of 2021. Farinas told investigators he was the officer who put the spit hood on Manny Ellis. Ford helped restrain Ellis as well. So basically, what you just heard was that the city of Tacoma and taxpayers paid three officers who are criminals, violent race soldiers, more than $1 million as their own paid leave for doing nothing. They took a man's life, and they've been paid combined over $1 million since they've been on leave. To these officers and to most police officers, our lives are only worth overtime. Overtime pay. That's the reality of it.